Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ Dhammāṃ Saṅghāṃ Namasami. August 12th, 2020. It's Wednesday, half moon, the waning half moon lunar observance day. Also known as Wan Prat, that's Thai. Wan means day, Prat means monk, so monk day. I was thinking about what to talk about tonight, and a lot of stories, old stories, were coming into my mind just about practice, and thinking about Longpo Pasano and how many experiences he's had in his life and what he's done in his life, and also just thinking about experiences we've had here as a community, and we're kind of marveling at this group. We're quite a community, quite a sangha of monastics and lay people, and there's also people on retreat right now, on solitary retreat. There's one of the senior monks who's on retreat who's 1 week into a water fast, which the only time I ever tried a water fast, after 2 days I felt like hell and had to stop. And he's 1 week into a water fast. There's an anagarika who's on top of a hill and hasn't been seen. Hope he's okay. But quite a group of practitioners, virtuous people. And there's also the monks who are abroad. There's Tsuhajo, who's in Australia at Buddha Bodhiwana, Ajahn Kalyanos, and Ñāṇiko, who is, I have to admit, to a bit of jealousy. He's with Longpo Liam for the Vasa, and he's able to be his personal attendant and help Longpo Liam with whatever work is going on at Wat Kwokjan, which is a branch of Wat Nong Bapong near Longpo Liam's home village. So they're there, so Ñāṇiko gets the full, true Wat Bapong experience. It's not just legend anymore, he's living it. So thinking about just the fullness and richness of the gifts the Buddha's given us, the ability to live in this way, to live with Sila Samadhi Panya, live with the precepts. And just stories of the extents that monks will go to seek solitude. What is that? Why are we so inspired by living in remote places, living in solitude? We hear stories about Tanajan Man, of going really deep into the forest, living deep in the forest, away from society, and going on these incredible alms rounds, long alms rounds, or just like Longpo Pasano starting Dao Dam on the Burmese border, this jungle hermitage. It's like, why do we put so much effort and extend ourselves to seek solitude? There's this deep inspiration in seeking out remote places to practice. And Ajahn Pasano first went to Dao Dam. It was, I believe it was his 6th Vasa. Might have that wrong. And he was very inspired by this remote place, a tin mine, outside of a tin mine, the border of Burma, just a really wild, intense jungle. And at a place like Dao Dam, you don't just have animals, you don't just have bears and tigers and elephants roaming around everywhere, all around you, but you have storms and huge trees falling in these giant storms. And when a tree falls there, it'll be connected to other trees with vines, and you have these big storms that come through, and you just have trees falling and vines pulling down other trees, and it's just really incredible, really powerful. Snakes, they're king cobras, the world's biggest poisonous snake. But being inspired by this remote, wild place, and eventually Luang Por Chah made Ajahn Pasano the abbot of Wat Pah Nanachat, our western branch in Thailand, and he wanted to take the Sangha out there. So you have the first walk, the first tudong out to Dao Dam, taking the Sangha of Wat Pah Nanachat to experience this place. And so if the dirt roads going out to Dao Dam, it's a 4-hour drive and 4-wheel drive if you drive. But instead there's this tradition since the beginning to walk in. That's about 2 or 3 days of walking in on these roads and trails. And these characters who are now great teachers in their own right, who were on that first walk out to Dao Dam, who were junior monks at the time, people like Ajahn Sona, Ajahn Punadamo, they were on that tudong. Ajahn Chandapalo, other monks who we've never heard of, who either disrobed or went away from our group. So there's this group led by Ajahn Pasano at the time, and it wasn't really clear exactly where Dao Dam was. Easy to get turned around, easy to get lost. And Ajahn Sona tells the story really well, and I'm not a great storyteller, but try to repeat some of the things he said about that walk, which I've heard the story from both Ajahn Sona and Ajahn Punadamo, and they recount the same story but slightly different details and different things they remember about it. And there was also like Burmese refugees having like ad hoc communities in the jungle, and they were hoping to meet up with some of these communities. And so they're walking in, and it's the hot season. The whole reason you go out to Dao Dam is it's cool there in the jungle during the hot season in Thailand. So in the hot season, you take the Sangha of Wat Pah Nanachat out to Dao Dam, get away from the heat, but the walk out is still very hot. So they have these dusty dirt roads with like inches thick of just the finest dust on these roads, and it's just hot. The sun is beating down, and this group of monks have their bowls and robes and all of their gear and requisites, and they're walking in to Dao Dam, and just covered. Everybody's just covered in dust and sweating, and you're crossing streams, and you're just walking through the day. So there's a ranger station where they may have been there at that time where they could have the meal, but then walking on, and then because they didn't really, the group kind of gets separated when you're walking like this, especially if you have more than 8 or 10 monks. And so there's some monks who were slower, some monks who were quicker, who were getting quite far ahead. And it was getting dark, and they hadn't really gotten to where they were hoping to stay for the night on their way out to Dao Dam. And so it was dark, and they were just walking in the dark. And so they're on this road with flashlights and just trudging on in this dust. And Ajahn Sona just said he's just exhausted, just walking one foot after the other in this dust. And you'd put your foot down, and the dust would just kind of just float up into the air and get all over you. And you'd put your next foot down and just so walking in the night in this dust, and there, you can't see. It's just jungle off to both sides, and eventually, at some point, maybe 10 or 11 p.m., then they get to where the other monks are kind of stopped, and then these people come out of the forest, and these Burmese refugee villagers, and so inviting the monks to come and stay and get cleaned up, and the monks get cleaned up, and the villagers offer hot drinks and coffee, and it's like, normally for us, we wouldn't drink coffee at 11 p.m., but just anything was nice at that time in that particular situation. Coffee, water, and get cleaned up, and a place to set up the glot, the monk's mosquito net, and an umbrella tent. And so people quietly getting cleaned up, setting up their camp, and having a rest. And next day, the villagers offering the meal. And then continuing on the next day. So, this is really, really difficult. What they were doing, and why even do it? But to have an experience like that is incredibly rare and precious, and very incredible, actually. That ordination, the act of ordination, can give you an experience like that. And so they make it out to Dao Dam. There's 2 areas at Dao Dam. Dao Dam, by the way, means Dao means turtle, Dam means black, so it's black turtle, and it's the area is named after this large rare turtle that lives there, black turtle. And there's two areas. There's actually three areas. There's like the dining area or the kitchen area. This is like what we call down below. And then there's a big mountain, which is to walk up to the dwelling places on this mountain. It's kind of like walking up to the Abhayagiri Ridge. It's about the same distance. Same, and at just as steep. And you're walking up, and so there's this, that's called like the outer sala area. And then there's a connecting trail into the jungle part of Dao Dam, which is called the inner forest area. And that's where you're sure to see all the wildlife. And so they spread out and live in these different areas. And the food gets, I think at that time they were actually going alms round at the tin mine, which was still there. So it'd be a few miles to walk and get very basic food and kind of come back and eat the food in the kitchen area or the dining area, and then go back up to, or living on what's called dieng, these, which means bed in Thai. So it's like little bamboo platforms with two pieces of bamboo that go up, and then you have a piece of bamboo across, and you can hang your mosquito net from that, and you can lay awake at night wondering what kind of animal is going to come to you that night. And I've heard stories of, there's these giant porcupines that live there, and I have seen these porcupines. They're really impressive. They're about the size of probably the size of like the biggest pig you could imagine, and they have these really giant spikes on them, these quills, and when they walk, I heard it, the best description I've heard, it's like a barrel of pencils that you're like rolling, and that's what it sounds like when they walk. And so there was one monk that was sleeping in the mosquito net, and your feet kind of like are shoved against the edge of the mosquito net, and he felt a sensation on his feet one night, and it was one of these giant porcupines licking the salt off of his feet. So just these kind of wonderful experiences. And I remember staying at Dao Dam and kind of like in the inner forest, and I had gone out there earlier than the group. I was actually never did the walk out there, but was driven out there and went to the inner forest. It was just me and one other monk, and I remember just, it was really intense the first week or so, and then I became numb to it, and the animals just became normal. Remember, there's a little sala, a little meditation hall in the inner forest. We call it the inner forest sala, and I'd sit there by myself for 2 hours every evening, meditating, and then, like as it would get dark, and then walk back to my dieng, and remember sitting meditation there and hearing a sound like poof, 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 and just kind of opening my eyes and looking over, and there's just a leopard padding across the area, and it didn't pay me any mind, but okay, well, I'll just keep meditating. So these kind of experiences of animals, it's a bit more benign now because you don't have malaria there, or it's much less than it used to be. So in that first year, there's this incredible story of Ajahn getting 2 types of malaria at the same time. There's 2 types. There's the cerebral malaria and the liver malaria. And the liver malaria is more painful but less fatal, and the cerebral malaria is less painful but more fatal. So he had those 2 types of malaria, both types at the same time, and you get these incredible malarial fevers, and Ajahn Sona describing just Ajahn Pasano just putting up with these fevers and taking herbal medicines and just being at Dao Dam, and that's what we call Kanti Barami, or patient endurance. Like in Thai they say Otton. You build up this, when you practice like that, you build up this sense of patient endurance, and a really important quality in the practice. So we have this here. We have this here at Abhayagiri, this kind of wildness. Anybody who goes out or spends time in the forest, spends time on retreat, there's that wildness, the quietude, and it's not as intense as Dao Dam, but we've got the requisite animals. We've got the mountain lions, the bears, and so living out in the forest, you still get that kind of wild, removed experience. So why have these experiences? Why go to that extent? And the Kruba Ajahns would teach that it's just about finding situations where the mind is going to be going inward. So sometimes it's difficult to keep the mind from going out. We need actually good external conditions for the mind to go in and to be within oneself. So doing walking meditation, for example, in the middle of the forest at night can be quite helpful for that sense of the mind going in, and the imagination can just run wild. It's like maybe there's a bear watching me. Maybe there's a mountain lion watching me, and maybe something's going to happen. So the imagination can run wild, and just trying to and doing the walking meditation until that calms down, and then that sense of going inward. Remember doing walking meditation at night at Dao Dam, and I had like these little candles set up on the side of the walking meditation path, but then it's just black, just dark around. So the jungle is there, and you can't see very far at all. You even shine a flashlight, and it's just like thick vines and shrubbery, and you can't really see very far. So you hear the slightest noise, and the imagination can just run wild. So I remember doing walking meditation. It's just like hearing this noise coming from the distance. It's like, oh no. And I was really scared, hair standing on end, and just doing the walking meditation. But can see the fear coming up, and this sound is getting closer and closer. And I'm starting to hear rustling in the bushes, just a few feet away from the walking meditation path, and then it's like whatever it is about to come onto the walking meditation path, and it's just like, and then I look down, and it's this little tiny mouse. It was very, very small, and it jumped out of the brush onto the walking meditation path, and then ran down the path. And so my imagination was just running wild, like there's this huge bear or maybe a tiger, maybe a tiger or something. It's this little tiny mouse. Or like going back to the Dieng after the meal one day, and stepped over what I thought was a bright green vine across the trail, and it was a snake, and it like reared up, and as I was stepping over it, and had this little dance, and it was like going back and forth, and I was like trying to like step away from it, and I didn't know if it was poisonous, or I looked it up in the snake book afterwards, and it was one of the few non-poisonous snakes that exist there. But these things that kind of keep you on your toes, keep you alert, and being careful of the surroundings. So we have these kind of experiences of living out in the wild, and can think of that's what monks were doing in the time of the Buddha. That's what monks, practitioners, yogis doing over the millennia in all countries, practicing out in nature, practicing in solitude, and so we can talk a lot about teachings and meditation techniques, and those are all very important and very good and necessary. But really, in terms of the practice, what it comes down to is experience and building up experience over time, and learning from that experience, internalizing that experience. And it can be a little bit misleading reading the suttas or studying the suttas, or even reading biographies of great meditation masters like Ajahn Mun. We might have this sense like it all happened very quickly. But you read a biography of Ajahn Mun, and that's trying to encompass an entire lifetime of a great being, and in a book that we might read over a period of a couple of weeks. And so trying to get our mind around that type of experience. What was the experience that was actually built up by these great practitioners of the past? And what kind of things did they seek out? What kind of things did they do? How did they actually practice? What kind of resolve did they make? So this is real. These are the lives of Ajahn Mun, Ajahn Chah, these Ajahn Pasano. These things actually happened. These people actually lived these lives and had these experiences. So like as we develop experience over the year, what kind of reflections, what kind of things do we consider, what kind of things do we think about, what kind of mental qualities do we develop in order to more fully more fully be present for these kinds of experiences and learn from them. So the Buddha gave us the Vinaya, the precepts, there's also the Dhamma, the different reflections and different practices to take on. There's ways that things we think about to make the mind more wholesome. There's things we consider over time, and one of the things that can make the mind more wholesome is just thinking of the goodness of good people that we live with. Starting to notice good qualities in others. This is one of the benefits of Tudong as well, is being supported. This is one of the benefits of being alms mendicants. This is why the alms round is like a central, ultra important role in the monk's life, if not the most important part of the monk's life. Is like in Thailand we do it daily, so it's more highlighted, but seeing the goodness of other people, and that can really uplift the mind. We also do it here. We also do the daily alms round here, but our daily alms round is the buffet table, and it's offered by all of you, and the food that's cooked every day. So you're all the villagers, and we're coming down from the work period or the mountain or wherever, and we have the easiest alms round. We can just go to the buffet table and walk around it, and that's our alms round. But that is alms round. That is a genuine alms round. And in In Thailand, it takes the different form of going into the village. For example, if you're living at Wat Pananachat, then you're going to Bung Wai village, or the other villages around Wat Pananachat, and you're living at Wat Papong, you're going to Ban Gaw, or the other villages around Wat Nong Papong, and the villagers every single day, a big part of their life, they start their life with that act of generosity. And so similar to Abhayagiri, every single day, somebody cooks in the kitchen, somebody makes the food, or people come with food, dana. So that's alms round, that is alms round. There's that daily reflection and generosity. So that's a reflection that keeps the mind bright, and that's an experience which builds up over a long period of time. My very life is sustained through the gifts of others. That's one of the reflections for one who's gone forth. It becomes extra highlighted on Tudong, so like going out to Dao Dam that first time when they were supported by these incredibly poor, materially poor refugee villagers, or like Tudong in America. This is something we're building up. Many of us have done this now. Even if it's a short Tudong, I can remember Ajahn Ahingsako, Ajahn Titapanyo going on a short Tudong some years back. But like just too many stories to name of unexpected generosity, and I've been on 4 Tudongs now since 2013. The first one with Anagarika Aaron when he was Bhikkhu Titabo. Went to walking from here to Pacific Hermitage. So it's just some of the most incredible heart-moving generosity. It's like with all these experiences, there's always something. If my mind gets negative or depressed, and there's always something in these experiences to fall back on, to just to wonder at or to be amazed by. In 4 Tudongs since that time, there's only been one day that we haven't received alms food. And that was on that first Tudong. And that was when we were on the Oregon coast, and it was roughly 30 miles of coastline with no town. We just didn't make it to the next town in time. So anytime we've made it into a town, then there's been food that's offered. The one day we didn't eat, it happened to be after the longest walking day. So we were in a Gold Beach, Oregon, and we'd been offered the meal by some people we'd been staying with, and walk out from Gold Beach. We were aiming for this town called Port Orford on the Oregon coast, so walking up Highway 101, and there's a whole lot of nothing in this particular area of the Oregon coast, and walking along Highway 101 even, there's not that many cars. And we spent time walking on the highway, walking on the beach. I think we walked almost 20 miles that day, and then it was getting dark, and it was middle of the summer, so it was June, end of June, so it's around summer solstice, so it's still light, about 9:30 p.m. We're still walking. Not really a clear place to camp or stay, so we just decided to go off the side of the highway, and then there was this kind of bluff and some cliffs going down to the ocean, and we stayed on this kind of bluff that was next to the highway. It was secluded enough. And kept walking the next day, essentially just sleeping in this grass off the side of the highway, and heading off the next day. And we were aiming for Port Orford. You could kind of see it. It was a point way in the distance, and but walking, and it's getting to noontime, and our meal time cutoff is 1 p.m., so after that we wouldn't be able to eat according to our precepts, and so it's getting up to toward noon, and I was like, okay, there's this campground. There was a campground. It's clear we're not going to make it to the town, but there was this campground. So it's like, oh, let's try to go alms around in this campground. And so we went in and kind of walking around the campground, and we can't, according to our precepts, we can't really inform people of what we're doing or ask. So we were just walking through, and there was a lot of tourists there, and nobody really paid us any attention. And so we went up to the camp host trailer and asked if we could have some water, kind of hoping they would ask if we needed anything else on top of water. But they, oh yeah, sure, you can you can have some water. So we sat. I remember sitting at this. We were sitting at this picnic table, just thinking like, okay, and according to our precepts, we can keep these called 7-day tonics, certain things like honey, molasses, sugar. You can keep for up to 7 days as a bhikkhu. And a couple days previously, we'd been offered a jar of molasses. And so we had this jar of molasses, and okay, this is what we have. And we just had this big jar of molasses, I remember, and and we just like ate this jar of molasses, and that was the one day we didn't really get alms food, and that was pretty harsh. But then remember after that walking on, and it was very windy on the Oregon coast there, and eventually, even before we got to the town, getting picked up by somebody, and then he ended up offering to take us to this like Zen resort place where we ended up staying that night, and we got offered some allowables that night, so it still wasn't that bad that we skipped the meal that day. But then suddenly we were in these kind of like nice retreat cabin style rooms this man wanted to purchase these rooms for us, but then the owners of this Zen retreat place wanted to offer it, so then they didn't let him pay for it, and then they were curious about us, so there was this kind of generosity happening. It's like kind of like famine followed by feast, and the next day this guy who had picked us up met us and wanted to offer a meal, got us a really big meal. And, so just meeting people who are generous, and the mind can just fall back on experiences like that if it starts to get into a slump or whatever. So what do we do when things get unpleasant? What do we do when we're tired? What do we do when we just when things aren't going well? And inevitably that's going to happen. So that's also experience when we go through difficulties and we don't give up on the practice, and we go through the ups and downs of life, but within the context of the practice. So we don't give up, we don't throw in the towel, we keep going. And but how do we practice when it's unpleasant? And this is another This is another quality of ottan, or patient endurance. And what do we do when there's bodily dukkha? When there's pain in the back, pain in the knees, or do we use mindfulness, try to look at it, or do we try to get away from it? How do we react to these things? What do we do when the mind is frustrated, or judging, or getting into kind of a bit of a rut? It's not bright. It's more like in a slump, or closed off, contracted. This is like mindfulness of the mind. The Buddha is saying, like, as a angry mind is angry, knows a happy mind is happy, knows the mind with craving is a mind with craving, knows a mind without craving is a mind without craving, knows a contracted mind is contracted, an expansive mind is expansive. So like knowing the current mental state, and then the Buddha goes on to say, like, knowing, say with the angry mind as an example, knowing like how an arisen angry mind came to be, and how, having once arisen, how it passes away, how it stays for a while, how it passes away, and starting to see the workings of the mind. So like that's also one of the signs of the Saparisa Dhammas. One of the signs of a great person is one who knows where they're at, one who's able to take stock of where they're at. So another thing that can be helpful for getting through difficulties, or learning how to sustain the life of practice as we experience these things, is contemplation of impermanence. It's like when Ajahn Chah was asked, like, what caused him to succeed in his practice, he said the two things that were the most important were patient endurance and contemplating impermanence and uncertainty. So certainly that's applicable in our experience as we experience difficulties. Patiently enduring means being able to be present with the unpleasant, and contemplation of impermanence, uncertainty. That means one is like the impermanence of our own life. Like, life is short, and let's do what we can when we can to make the mind wholesome. And but it's also uncertainty. Like, we don't know what is going to happen in the future. So those two different aspects to impermanence. And Ajahn Chah kind of saying those two things were the most important qualities to cause him to succeed in his practice. It wasn't his particular breathing technique or any other thing. It was those two qualities. So he's pointing to these deep heart qualities to be developed in the practice, made much of. That's the kind of thing that's built up based on experience. One of the blessings of being in contact with the Kruba Ajahns. I was thinking about Luang Por Liam quite a bit, just because Tansudiko is able to spend a lot of time with him right now, and was thinking about this short period of time I was able to be his upatak, be his personal attendant when I spent the vasa at Wat Pah. My seventh vasa was at Wat Pah, but I didn't get to be the personal attendant except for this 2 weeks, and it was during katina season. And in katina season in Thailand, then there's 1 month which is classed as katina season, and you'll tend to go to different katinas, these different cloth offering ceremonies that happen after the vasa. And one of the ways they do it at the monasteries in Thailand, and it's not done at every monastery, but it's kind of the house style at the Wat Pah Pong monasteries, is there'll be monks will come together and support a branch monastery for a katina, and then there'll be all-night Dhamma talks, and then the next morning will be the katina ceremony offering, the actual cloth offering. And then that day, the cloth will be made into a robe for a selected Sangha member, made into a robe before the next dawn. So it's kind of this go, and there's these all-night talks, and then there's this ceremony. And so one thing you'll do if you're attending to a senior monk is you'll go to different katinas, and it might be 1 or 2 or 3 in a week, and you'll be going to these all-night talks, and you're getting pretty tired. And so I remember going with Lungpor Liam to this one monastery where the Wat Pah Pong monks had been building a new sala, and so we went a couple days early because they had to finish the sala well enough to have the katina inside of it. And so there's all the monks there doing brickwork and welding work and trying to get this place ready for katina. So I was doing this work period late into the night and pushing carts of bricks and mopping the big floor to clean it up, and we're going till about 1 in the morning with this kind of work. Really heavy physical labor, and Lungpor Liam was there, and he was about 70 at the time, and he was there with everybody else, carrying steel beams around. And 1 in the morning, I remember it was about 1 in the morning, and he said, "Evang, Evang, Evang." So that means, okay, done. And then we went back for a rest and prepare his resting place. Maybe, I remember I got to bed at about 2, wake up at about 4 to prepare this Lungpor Liam's breakfast, or like morning bath, like hot water for a morning bath, and then maybe preparing some of their breakfast once dawn happens, and so I was really tired, and I was like, oh no, tonight's going to be all-night Dhamma talks, and we had this work period last night, and I was getting a little bit nervous, and through the day, my heart was just kind of racing because I was so tired, but still having to look after the senior monk. And I remember coming to evening time, and Lungpor Liam was having some tea, and I was sitting at his feet, fanning mosquitoes away from his feet. And my Thai wasn't that good at that time, but I decided it was just me and him, so I decided to ask him about this, like, why are we doing this? Because, like, isn't it better to take a rest? Like, I feel like my heart's gonna jump out of my chest. I feel like it's like really, I'm in a lot of discomfort right now, and kind of, we got the all-night talks tonight, and so I was asking him about this, and he was just kind of like looking at me and said, "Are you afraid of death?" I was kind of taken aback, and I didn't know what to say, so I just kind of was holding my hands in Anjali, and he said, "If you die, you die. It just doesn't matter." And all the kind of fear and all the kind of nervousness just kind of disappeared. And for whatever reason, that was the thing for me to hear in that moment. And then it was fine. Then it was fine. There was these talks. I don't think I stayed up all night, but stayed up however late Luang Por Liam was staying up, and yeah, it was fine. But I remember when he said that, the heart kind of sang, and there was like the teacher kind of helping out, and sometimes we need that kind of hard encouragement to get through these things. Because also I could see there was like a sense of self-importance in my nervousness, in my fear of that kind of pain or that kind of unpleasantness or difficulty. There's a sense of self-importance, like, and then with the teacher sort of cutting through that using the death contemplation, quite helpful. So I kind of fondly remember that experience. So we can use thoughts like that or reflections like that to do things like stay up for till midnight, for example, just keep the practice going. So it's not about seeking a pleasant experience, but it's about learning how to be with the pleasant and the unpleasant with mindfulness. Being able to sit through things. We might feel like I don't feel good right now. I don't feel happy right now. I don't feel joyful right now. But we sit through that, and there can be like a stepping back from that, or like we might be listening to a Dhamma talk. Like, what is he saying? That's not right. Like internally commentating. But then we can just sit with that as well and know that that's what's happening. So there's always these ways, like as we build up experience, there's always these ways to how to move forward with the practice. So these are just a few ramblings, meanderings as time goes on. Then we can think about some of these things, bring some of these reflections to mind. So this talk is given out of a sense of well-wishing for everybody, and I wish everybody well and have a hope for a good practice evening. So I'll leave it there for tonight.